Hello there, Peabody here. And this is the Wayback Machine for traveling through time. And this is my boy, Sherman. Speak, Sherman.
Hello.
Good boy.
Live from Joe's mom's basement, it's the Stacking Benjamin Show. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug, and how do you take a good idea and turn it into a billion-dollar business? We'll tell you how, because we'll ask today's guest, the founder of the RealReal, Julie Wainwright. Plus, in our headline, do you have too much in that one stock? You sure do, and so do some people way smarter than you. Although, I mean, don't get me wrong, we still think you're really, really smart. And don't worry, we'll help you find a way out. And don't even ask, yes, it's already on the menu. You're about to win a helping of my incredible trivia. And now, two guys who believe your financial future is brighter than your phone screen at 2 a.m. Seriously, turn it off. It's Joe and G.
Hey there, Stackers. Super happy you're here with us today. Sit back and relax because you are in for some Wednesday goodness, or whatever day you happen to be listening. Because if you've ever had an idea, you want to make sure that that idea becomes much, 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 much bigger than you ever imagined. Well, as Doug so eloquently said, Julie Wainwright joining us today. Mr. OG, how are you? You're joining us today, as usual.
Yes, I'm contractually obligated to join you today, but I want to be here. I'm here because I want to be here. Also because of the contract.
Have you ever had one of those $1 million ideas where you're like, man, could have done
I've had
that?
so many. Soap on a rope, the internet, adding guacamole.
So many ideas, so little time. Julie Wainwright is going to talk about that and all the frustrations she had, all the roadblocks that are in her way and how she got through those. So a fantastic episode. If you like kind of the how I built this stuff, the RealReal. If you're not familiar with the RealReal, it's a luxury goods consignment store. Not only did she found a fantastic business, she's been featured in Forbes, CNBC, Entrepreneur, Fast Company, Business of Fashion. She's been recognized on Forbes 50 over 50 lists alongside people like Shonda Rhimes. Shonda Rhimes, by the way, that woman creates just shows and more shows and more shows. Mm-hmm. She's a disruptor in luxury, tech, and sustainability. She's here coming down to mom's basement.
Sweet.
Super excited that we get to talk to her. But to have great people like Julie, we need to keep on keeping on. And that means we got a couple sponsors that make sure that you don't pay a dime for our wonderful Wednesday mentors like Julie. So sit back here for a couple seconds. We're going to hear from them. And then we have Julie Wainwright coming down to the basement. Well, running a small business, as you may know, like I do, it is super fun, but it can also be very tough. And when it's time to get a loan, it can feel impossible to find the lender that you actually trust. Big banks say no. The internet, well, that's full of sketchy offers with sky-high rates and fine print you can barely read. Whether you need help covering payroll, managing cash flow, or investing in growth, you deserve better. And that's why I recommend the small business marketplace Fundera, which is powered by NerdWallet. It's a free, easy-to-use platform. It lets you compare real financing offers from trusted lenders, and it's all in one place. And what I like is that you don't need perfect credit to get started. There's no spam, there's no bait and switch, just personalized options that fit your business needs. Nothing I like better than a place that treats me the way that they would want to be treated. Using Fundera is a super way to quickly compare options and make your best funding move the way any great business owner would. Here's the best part, though. For a limited time, when you visit nerdwallet.com/SB and fill out the no obligation form, you're going to get VIP treatment and talk with a real person who knows all the ins and outs of small business lending. And you can tell them specifically what you're looking for. They can tell you specifically which options you should probably consider most. Don't risk your business on unreliable lenders. Go to nerdwallet.com/SB to learn more and find the funding you deserve. Fundera Inc., NMLS ID number 1240038. Well, there's nothing that relieves stress more when You have had a long day. You are completely fried, and you're thinking to yourself, maybe I'll just go out to dinner. But then you think about all those calories, all that money out of your wallet, and then you realize that you can eat healthy because you found Factor. Factor is ready in 2 minutes. Factor shops, preps, cooks, and delivers straight to your door, so you have more time for everything you love this spring, and you don't have to worry about eating healthy and going outside your budget because you've got the food sitting there in the fridge that you had pre-planned. What is Factor? Well, Factor has meals built around your goals, whether that's weight loss, overall nutrition, more protein, or GLP-1 support for strength and workout recovery. Check out Factor's Muscle Pro collection. Every meal's crafted with functional ingredients, lean proteins, colorful veggies, whole foods, and healthy fats. Factor bans 175 plus ingredients. No artificial colors or sweeteners, no high fructose corn syrup, no refined seed oils, just nutrient-dense foods. It's fresh, never frozen, over 100 rotating weekly meals, including globally inspired flavors like Mediterranean and Asian, so there's always something new to look forward to. I use Factor. I think you're going to love it too. Head to factormeals.com/SB50off, stackers, and use code SB50off, and you're going to get 50% off and free daily greens per box with new subscriptions only while supplies last until 9/27/2026. And we're super happy to have her at the card table. Julie Wainwright's here. How are you?
Oh, I'm super. This is fun. This is a good Friday. Let's do it.
It is. It is a fantastic day. Although you're letting people in on this because it's Wednesday, Julie. You got to remember it's Wednesday.
It's Wednesday. It's Wednesday. Sorry.
The miracle of podcasting. Yeah. Hey, how old were you when you created the RealReal?
Well, the press got it wrong. They said 53. I was 52.
Oh.
Exactly. So much younger.
I know. I don't want to be dated like that. Come on.
I know.
But there's this myth that it's young people in their 20s that are creating companies, Julie. And it's funny because I see a bunch of entrepreneurs that are in their 40s and 50s. Were you afraid, though, to start a company at 52 years old?
Nope, not at all. It was easier than anything before. You know, I think in technology, I know for a fact in tech, because the RealReal was a technology-based company.
Sure.
It's very surprising for someone, put biotech aside, because older entrepreneurs do start biotech companies. But in the tech world and even the consumer tech world, you're not over 30. So it was unusual when I met with people when I was pitching for money, because most of the people I met with could have been like, if I had kids, could have been my son or almost my son, it's all men, almost my son. And they all wanted to talk about pets.com. And then I would have to do the math and realize they were probably in grade school when pets.com was happening.
Not even old enough to know what could have happened with pets.com.
Well, look, that was the beginning of the internet. It was one of the first, after Amazon, one of the first e-commerce companies ever. So it's not something that was in their psyche. They were too young.
I want to get into pets.com in a minute. It's funny because that was during my career. I remember getting fired in early 2000 by a client because I think their returns, and this is back when I was a financial planner, their returns in their accounts across the board were only like 52%.
Oh my gosh.
And they fired me because 52 was so, but you remember those days.
I do.
Those are pretty heady days.
And then they were minus 50 for a few weeks.
It was so funny. After they fired me in 2002, the bottom of the bottom, I wanted to call them up and do the Dr. Phil. How's that working for you? Not being diversified. But let's go back. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in South Bend and then Mishawaka, Indiana.
But before that, you were in Kalamazoo, right?
I was born in Kalamazoo.
I'm from Kalamazoo.
No.
My parents, I don't know how well you know Kalamazoo. My grandparents had a fruit farm on the west end of Long Lake.
We rented a house on Long Lake. That, if you read the book, when I opened the story of me walking off the dock, that was Long Lake.
That was Long Lake. Yeah. So can you tell that story? Because you're 3 years old.
Well, first of all, I didn't remember it because I was 3 years old. My dad told me this story. So he used to work for Shakespeare, Rod and Reel when he first got out of art school because they couldn't get a job as an artist. And he was running their PR, but he'd come home from work and he would get in somebody's ski boat because we didn't have it, but he'd wear his suit and go around he had trick skis. So he'd go around the lake doing stunts,
in a tie
and a shirt, and, he's probably rolled up, tie down, but, barefoot with his pant legs, but he was in a suit. And he saw me literally walking off the dock. And my mother wasn't around. At that time, I was the only child. I had every doll I ever owned. And he saw those dolls float away. And by the time he got back to the dock, he was convinced I was drowned and dead. And he looked under, and I had pulled myself up and was like looking at him. So I don't even know, obviously I don't remember it, but, he basically wanted to say, look, you saved yourself at 3. I think you've got everything you need inside of yourself. And if you have to save yourself again. But what a story, huh?
Well, it's a dramatic story. And it's funny that your dad's in a suit and tie. I mean, a guy who knows marketing very well. You write that you came by marketing kind of honestly because of all the lessons you got.
Right.
Yeah, all the training ahead of time. You grew up riding motorcycles. Your dad liked to ski with a suit and tie. It feels like, to some degree, Julie, like taking risk was a part of your life. And yet when I talk to some entrepreneurs, they're like, the reason I like being an entrepreneur is because I don't really love risk. I want to be in charge because I don't want to risk somebody else making the wrong call.
Oh, that's a control issue, isn't it? That's all about control. That's not a bad reason either.
Well, that's what I was going to ask is, which is it? Do you like risk? Is that why you're an entrepreneur, or is it because you don't like risk?
I don't know if that was it. Look, I do think at some point betting on yourself is easier than cleaning up somebody else's mess. How's that? Especially if you have a good idea. But, we always viewed those things as having fun. We had motorcycles, we had go-karts, we water skied when we left Long Lake in Kalamazoo, but we'd go on fishing vacations. We were water skiing, snow skiing. And I didn't even know how odd it was till I pulled up on my motorcycle. It was a little one. They were like, because he liked dirt bikes. So we would race dirt bikes, but he also wanted them to be licensable. So it was like a 120, Kawasaki 120.
I had one of those.
You did?
I did.
Say they're fast. They're fast and they're easy. And for a kid, they're not hard to maneuver. That was
Not
the
at
other
all.
thing. So he wanted something, but I remember pulling up at my girlfriend's place. This is in Osceola, Indiana, of all things. We went to high school together. Her dad had a funeral home. And their dad walked out and he said, I want you to tell your dad these are my best customers, come on these bikes. So, and then I'm
That's
like,
not the happy thing that you initially think, right?
imagine?
Yeah.
Can you imagine? And I'm like, well, all right. And then the other thing I thought was funny, my father in particular was very social. So we always took vacations with other families. And there was one family in particular because they had a son my brother's age, a daughter my sister's age, and my parents loved him, and no one for me or the youngest. But they said their mom wouldn't let them come over when my dad was just home because he was too crazy with the motorcycles. And so these kids grew up sort of afraid of everything, and we grew up not afraid of those things.
As you're talking, it just kind of reminds me of when I first learned to ride road bicycles. And I had this friend that was teaching me like how to attack the hills and how to kind of stay out of the way of traffic. And I asked this guy, Robert, I said, Robert, what if you get hit by a car? And he said, it's not if, it's when. And what's kind of horrible is a few years later, he did get hit by a car. He was in the hospital for about a week. It wasn't great. But what strikes me is I feel like that about entrepreneurship as I read your words. Like, I think entrepreneurs are going to get, quote, hit by the car at some point. It isn't
It's not, you know what, if you're doing something, when I was creating the RealReal, I was creating something no one had ever seen before.
Sure.
And was clearly a threat to the existing luxury brands and still is. There were a lot of obstacles. There were also obstacles because it was a business to consumer business that was disrupting eBay, and almost every venture capital firm has an ex-eBay exec in there that thinks eBay doesn't need to be unsettled or disrupted. And, raising money as a female is hard. In fact, this woman said, it's really bad. I was talking, she asked questions. I was giving a lecture and she said, well, look, it's really hard. Women get less than 2% capital. And she went on and on and on. And I'm like, and when I was raising money, we got 2.1%. It doesn't matter. And I said, I also was 52 years old. I raised money every 6 months for the next 11 years. And at least the first round, I had pets.com, which was considered a big failure, hovering on my shoulder. So I was a female with a big failure who was old. And if I can do it, you can do it. If you have a good idea, you will. Although it is hard right now because there haven't been a lot of outcomes. So VCs are under a lot of pressure.
Yeah. Let's go back to early in your career. You finish at Purdue, and the Purdue story by itself is a whole story that I'll let people find out on their own.
Come on. We have to talk a little bit about it. No one talks about it. I dropped out and riveted Monte Carlo rear bumpers in a UAW plant.
Yeah. You drop out of college and then you end up going back later.
Yeah, I missed a semester. And luckily for me, the manager, the GM of the plant was that I was going to get married. And the guy, it was his father. So I learned so much because the plant was under pretty innovative, actually complete renewal. So they were reconfiguring everything with technology and it wasn't going well. So I learned a lot about troubleshooting and problem solving on the spot. And yet, they still had to ship those cars. They still had to get those bumpers. At that time, this plant was only a bumper plant. And then they were shipped off to a place that would go into assembly.
I would imagine a lot too, because a lot of the people I'm sure that you worked around didn't have that process management experience like you had.
Which life? No one on the line had it. And then later on, when I went back to Purdue, I had the next summer job I had was working at John Deere as a farm out buyer. So again, I was, Midwest, you're back in the manufacturing world. And that was great. They're great experiences. And, you learn so much understanding process and how technology impacts process, even then, because shop floor systems were evolving, technology was evolving. There was less accidents in the plants due to safety measures and new technology, even though it was so long ago. It was pretty incredible.
You have to have been, though, thrilled when you get the job out of college working for a big company like Clorox.
I was over the moon.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you 2 reasons. One is my consumer psychology professor called and said, I've got this wonder kid here that you guys have to meet. And then, there's 3 reasons. And then at the time, the CEO had graduated from Purdue, undergraduate. So he's like, a Purdue wonder kid in consumer psychology. So he wanted to meet me. And then secondly, they had hired one undergraduate and that guy's name was Steve. And Steve was doing phenomenally well because I was the second undergraduate they ever hired. So he was a big success and they didn't have to pay him as much as opposed to an MBA student. So if he wouldn't have worked out, it wouldn't have mattered. That one call from the professor wouldn't have mattered.
Forget it.
Right. So luckily he did really well, which opened the door for a few more of us to come in.
But still, I feel like when I got to the part of your story where you leave Clorox, a lot of our stackers, they're in good jobs that they tolerate, but not that they love. And they might be thinking about entrepreneurship or thinking about the next thing. It felt to me, reading your words, I want to know what you felt when you decided to leave Clorox to go explore a much, much smaller company. It's like going from this mothership that's not going to go anywhere to, maybe this new company you go to works, maybe it doesn't.
Well, all right. It was the beginning of the personal computer software industry. And I didn't know if I was joining a good company. And it was good I had a good run and it was really well run. But I did know that going into an experience when I really thought that was the future, personal computer software, I had never used, that's not true. At Purdue, you had to learn how to program. So I was down there with the punch cards. It's just something you had to do. And then we worked on terminals too, like I always called them dumb terminals. But when I graduated, you had to take computer science and that meant writing code and down there and you didn't want to drop those damn cards. And,
then you've got a programming mess.
Yeah. And then also the people that were down there all the time, even back then, didn't shower a lot, and I came down in my little skirts and high heels.
It smells like the computer department.
I just remember it being cold and dark down there because it really was in the basement at Purdue. I even remember the building. So I had experience, and we were using terminals to access data at Clorox and running all kinds of analysis off of that. But it was crude. It was like a tertile analysis or a quintile analysis by market, looking at shelf movement data. So, we had to learn how to use data and run those, but that really wasn't transforming things. And then when this guy from the finance department smuggled in his Apple II computer and showed me how I could stop hand calculating P&Ls and doing what ifs by hand and set up the program, I'm like, this is the future. So I get a call to join a company that was probably 4 million in revenue. But remember, I was young. I was 25. And here's the thing I think is interesting. I remember this so well. I was making $50,000 a year at Clorox at 25. And I thought, I'm making too much money for my age. And I didn't see any women above me in brand management at all. Because when they got to a certain level, they went into HR.
Julie, I'd just like to put this into context for everybody, because I did a little bit of the rule of 72. That's like today making around $300,000.
Oh, it felt like a lot. It was a lot of money.
Yeah.
But I thought I could get used to this money, and I'm 25 and I don't want to be the people I see above me. And then a personal computer technology company interviews me and offers me a job. And I'm like, I don't know, but they could pay me $25K. So, and I thought, I don't know what this is going to do, but I know this is the future and I want to be part of it. And there was no way to evaluate if that company was going to win, because at that time there were 3 or 4 personal computer software companies. There just weren't that many. It was an opportunity of a lifetime to join the personal computer software industry.
Just what a huge move for your entire career. And to have that kind of, I don't know, to have the resilience to be able to jump off and make that move.
You think that's youth? That is youth. That's where you think you're invincible. And if you mess up, you can always figure it out later.
Yeah, but you did it again at 52, though.
Well, I didn't have any choice because no one was going to hire me. I was on a path of start my own company, or look, this is a perfectly honorable thing, I'm going to say. My plan B, which to me was bad, and I'll tell you why. It had more emotional negativity. My plan B was go to Arizona, become a real estate agent, and dodge rattlesnakes. And I actually love parts of Arizona, but I hate the heat. That intense heat, and they have snakes, and I really hate snakes.
Arizona, send your hate mail to Julie, not to me.
No, I love Sedona. I think it's a beautiful state. I love Sedona. I love
gorgeous,
but it's beautiful.
Tucson.
It's one of my favorite. It's beautiful, but I didn't want to be in Phoenix selling real estate and then going for hikes where you run into rattlesnakes. I just thought, this is my future. It was either make this company work or, it wasn't going to be good. And I gave myself a couple years. So my back was against the wall the second time.
I like this idea mentally of leveraging yourself by saying, it's going to suck if I don't do this. If I don't do this, my life is going to be hell. So you're talking yourself into it, I feel.
Yes, I was. But it was also, at 52, you've got less years in front of you than and I don't know. I just felt like it was time. And I also took stock. I knew what I wanted. I knew I wanted to get into e-commerce. I knew I could do it better than anyone, maybe not Jeff Bezos, but I knew I would do a great job. And I just had to come up with an idea. So I would say it was a calculated risk that paid off, but the downside was not good. I mean, the downside for me was not good.
Yeah. You were at Berkeley Systems.
I was the CEO. I was promoted to the CEO there.
So were you the person that said, let's make You Don't Know Jack, one of my favorite games of all time?
God, that was so much fun. I would say that was a combination of me first getting them focused because they were trying to do too much in too many categories. So working with the founder, whose name is Wes Boyd, to get the development team focused, because when I walked in, they were doing still screensavers and they were doing edutainment and they were doing this, but their real core strength was entertainment. So paring down and getting them focused on one category, and then opening our minds up to, there are many ways to get this type of product built. And young guy, and Broderbund had done this way back when. They had an affiliate program, and we were talking about a hybrid program. What if someone came to us with a great game idea, and we combined that great game idea with great technology, marketing, and distribution? So another company came to us with the game. It was called Jellyvision, but they had it in a hyperstack. It seemed fresh and alive, and it felt like something we could get behind. I knew I could market it. So I would say my role there was keeping the company financially solvent, keeping them focused. And then I do take responsibility for launching that superbly, even though I was the CEO, and really making it a huge hit. But tech is a collaborative world. If the founder, who was incredibly talented as an engineer and had a lot of foresight, if he would have said, no, I hate this, we wouldn't have done it. You have to respect people's point of view and their talent. So he was really talented, and he was also the founder of the company. I was really the gun to hire to make sure that we could pay the bills and keep it going.
But for you guys to recognize just how different that game was, how the writing was so fresh.
So much fun.
Hilarious. Cookie Masterson, my goodness, that's a character that I just, you feel like is your best buddy because he's so quirky and weird.
But it wasn't, this is really a good lesson. It wasn't graphic intensive, right? It was audio.
Yeah.
It was audio intensive. And it was a little smarmy.
A little?
All right, a lot. But it was also fresh. And so I kept thinking, how am I going to get this sold? How am I going to introduce this game? Because you're not running television advertising, and we had brick and mortar distribution then. There was a big chain, an important chain called CompUSA. And I went to them and I said, what I'd like to do, if you'll let me do it, is set up in your key cities a demo. We had this really fun demo that would run with speakers on a pile of games, where the game is basically the announcer. It was an announcer-driven game, which invited you to, take, and so bought speakers and then turned that off and got all the gamers that came in to play the game. People were laughing through all this excitement. And that was solving a problem because no one had seen a game like that at that time. It won Game of the Year. At that time, you had to press discs. We had restructured the company. We didn't have a lot of cash, so we got 100,000 out, sold out before Christmas. And it just went and went and went and became about $30 or $40 million game overnight. But, you have to, whenever you introduce a new concept, you've got to figure out, how do you change people's perceptions? No one had seen a game like this, and it wouldn't translate. At that time, people were reading reviews of games.
Yeah.
And this would not translate because it was something people hadn't seen before.
Yeah, you're doing a trivia thing where instead it's this quirky, to your point, smarmy. You feel like you're a game show contestant. And it's the weirdness that hits you, no matter how the noise it makes when you press the button. For people who haven't played, you don't know Jack, you got to go find that. Well, let's get to, you go from there. What happened at pets.com? For our younger stackers, you described pets.com as Chewy, but better. And you said you might be biased, but you were doing what Chewy does then, but even better. But what happened at pets.com?
Well, all right. When pets.com got funded, it was funded by a company called Hummer Weinblatt, a venture capital group, and Amazon. All right. Those were the two big funders, and other people came in. When we made the announcement of getting funded, the thinking was, well, if Amazon's behind this, because they had also put money in another company called drugstore.com, which went belly up. But if Amazon is behind it, along with a reputable VC firm, no other pets companies are going to get funded. Well, 7 more got funded after that. So that's number one. That just shows you how frothy the market was. Then we just ran like hell to execute, raised, I'm going to say $100 million, and went public early. You could argue too early, but we were the last company to go public. And the reason we were the last company to go public is Amazon in 1999 had lost almost $1 billion in Q4. And they announced their earnings, which shocked the financial world, in Q1 when we were on the roadshow. And all of a sudden, our financing meetings started evaporating. The bankers would tell us and told me, no one's going to buy that you'll ever get to profitability if Amazon is getting bigger, but losing this amount of money every single quarter. It literally wiped out every company. No business to consumer company could get fined. It was the beginning of the collapse. So
you couldn't even get a meeting.
No, we got meetings. We got out, but it wasn't with enthusiasm. We got out. We were not oversubscribed. So we got out. We did raise money. The financial strategy at the time was go public if you can, and then do a secondary follow-on within 9 months. That wasn't going to happen for the company. So I cut costs, right? We raised all this money. I go back, I cut costs, I have layoffs, and we try to figure out how we can get to profitability faster, which you can't because these businesses are businesses of scale. And at that point, you had to build every piece of software. We had our own ops centers. And then I ended up shutting the company down and giving money back to shareholders, even though we had a net positive worth. We didn't take it to bankruptcy, which, by the way, was a mistake. Big mistake. And the reason I did shut it down was I didn't think we were going to get out of this financing drought. But I could have been wrong. Turns out I was right, but I could have been wrong. And there were other companies going through that financing drought. One of them that's pretty famous right now called Netflix.
Never heard of it. No idea. What is that company?
So it was just, it was in it too, but they navigated through it. They had a few more years behind them because they started when Real.com was going. Real.com was the other company I ran. Came in as the CEO, not the founder. And that site sold movies, didn't rent, sold movies when people bought movies and DVDs or cassettes before that. And that sold to Hollywood Video with their intent of slowing down the internet, which is pretty funny. So anyways, he navigated. The question is, could I have navigated the brand and done, I don't know. I didn't try. I was trying to be so fiscally responsible that I'm not sure that was the right decision. Now, my current investors would not have supported us going forward. So they weren't up for more money. They were seeing other companies go through some pretty bad times. But yes, so I had to shut Pets. I chose to shut Pets down. Not sure it was the right decision. Right after that, Webvan shut down, which lost $1 billion, like 1.1 or 1.2.
Right, lost a ton more money than Pets.com lost.
I know, but that was also the precursor to DoorDash or Instacart. So there was all these building blocks being laid. The foundation was being laid. But you need, for those businesses to succeed, you need capital. Just like, and Amazon went through a hard time where after 1999, where it could have fallen, but they thread the needle.
One of my favorite lines comes from this period of heartbreak that you have. In fact, you write that your husband left the day you were shutting the company down. Talk about a gut punch. But one of my favorite lines, Julie, is this line: I let it define me until I didn't. What does that mean?
Exactly what it says. I took on this cloak of failure until I realized it wasn't my cloak. It was public perception. It wasn't mine to wear. And so I lived in this state where I was beating myself up, second guessing myself, considering what I would do next, how I'd navigate. I mean, it wasn't just shutting the company down. I had weird things happen at my house. I had odd things happen at social events that were really horrific to me personally, but they were all about me running Pets.com. And at some point you just say, F you, this is my life. I need to stop this and stop wearing other people's expectations because I'm losing my life and I need to move forward. So yes, that's what that means. And once I got there, it was no going back. I mean, it was like, okay, we're done with that. We're done.
Well, look at now, because I talk to people about the fact that I'm going to be talking to you and you're known as the queen of the RealReal, and Pets.com is way back there. And the RealReal is this cool thing, this whole genre defining thing that you created, which is incredible. But let's talk about the RealReal, which is really, we could talk for 15 hours about the RealReal and so many business lessons, but stereotypical consignment store, right? Smelly, dark, like sketchy. I love you talk about walking into a pawn shop that supposedly deals in luxury goods and it just felt so slimy.
It was so gross. Even bringing that up, it's like I relive it. It was so and demeaning, just like, oh, this Cartier watch is out of style. And it was like 5 years old. Yes.
But how do you redefine that genre with the RealReal like you did?
Look, it was calculated. And I would say there's multiple things. We had to change people's perception of wearing pre-owned things. And my point of view on doing that was don't break the romance of the brand. These brands are beautiful. They need to be shown even as a secondary market in their beauty, not on the back of a closet door. So you need to show that they're relevant, and showing them relevant means showing that they're still cool, they're beautiful, putting them on models that are out, mixing previously owned with new. So putting out in front of people this idea that it doesn't matter if it's pre-owned because it's still beautiful, it's high integrity, high quality. And that was done visually. And we did do home parties too at the beginning, but it really comes down to visually changing the way the product is shown both on the site, but also doing editorial to focus on that. That was intentional. We had to change perceptions. You think about if you're going to get anything evaluated for, let's just talk about the jewelry or fine watches. You want to know what you want: transparency. You want a beautiful environment. You don't want pressure to consign. So putting a gemologist front and center that evaluates things in front of you in a beautiful office and then gives you a written document, says, we'll stick with this for 6 months, not maybe the price will go down tomorrow, which is and that's honoring, in that case, you're also honoring the consignor. And the fact that parting with jewelry can be, sometimes it's a bigger decision than maybe a dress in most cases. And they're also beautiful items. So it should be in a beautiful place. So I would say just thinking about it, not as a secondary market, but as a consumer experience and changing perceptions. And I knew it had to happen, and I knew what it wanted to feel like. And certainly everything I did testing out the competition reinforced it would, I hate to say it would be so easy to compete with these people because they weren't people that engendered confidence.
Well, and by showing it in a confident light, I mean, a luxury good, you need to be, the confidence is the good. The fact that I have a real Rolex and not a cheap knockoff Rolex is all about confidence. I feel like to retain the value of what you're selling, that's what you had to do as an entrepreneur.
Right. Absolutely. I always say, don't break the romance of the brand and respect both the product, which is what you just said, and also the person selling it and the person buying it. These are considered purchases. But, it came down to changing perceptions overall. I think the Rolex is a good example. The men's watch market for a long time has had a very vibrant secondary market. And they had Sotheby's or Christie's, the big auction houses, glamorizing that and glorifying it. So there was something to be learned there too. When you affiliate with Sotheby's and you buy a Philippe Petit or a Rolex, or you buy Steve McQueen's watch, it has a history. It's beautiful. It has integrity. So bringing that into more of a mass market without losing the allure and the prestige, that was the goal. And we did pretty well.
I think pretty well, Julie's an understatement. But let's end with one last question. A lot of people think that being an entrepreneur is this solo thing, right? And yet in your book, you talk a lot about the people that you have to surround yourself with, making sure you've got the right who's, but also partnerships were really important in your success. But partnering and trying to partner with some of these big department stores, some of these big brands, and you mentioned Sotheby's. Talk to me about the strategy of partnering and how that factored into the RealReal's success.
Early on, we did a deal with Saks and with Neiman Marcus. It ended because Chanel put demands on us through them that it ended fairly quickly.
Why is Chanel so intimidated by you?
Well, you'd have to, I think it's all in the court documents. How about that? We'll just say that it's all in the court documents.
Fair enough.
They do not like a secondary market. End of story. But having that initial relationship for 9 months and the exposure did benefit the company because we were only about 100 million then. it helped people understand what we were doing. And it also didn't hurt Neiman's or Saks, because people would then, it would sort of like an open to buy. They'd sell their things in the closet. They'd go, oh, I have a lot more money than I thought. Now I'm going to buy something new. So it was reinforcing the circularity of what happens when people shop, and the fact that if you buy things that have good quality, they do have a resale value. It worked for them, it worked for us. And then, yes, it was an important relationship at the beginning. It ended prematurely, but it still benefited the company.
But did you go hunting for those? Like, was that, I'm imagining a whiteboard and you go, okay, we got to go after Neiman Marcus.
Many. No, there aren't. Well, I mean, now there's less, but there was Barney's, Neiman's, and Saks really that had that kind of luxury. Barney's said they could do it themselves. And of course they couldn't. Neiman's was the one that was like, oh, well, this is worth trying. Saks stuck their toe in the water.
Did you call them initially though, Julie?
Oh, of course. Yeah. Knocking on doors. And then when we got to 500 million, I went overseas and started meeting with Kering, which has, Gucci and Saint Laurent, and then LVMH, which is Louis Vuitton and Christian Dior and Celine, etc., and trying to get a partnership going there. And the only one that worked was Stella McCartney. But it was great. That was a great one. I think it's still going on with the company. That was a great partnership. And she understands sustainability in fashion. That's her whole brand. And she understands the circular economy, and she likes shopping secondhand. So when they said yes, still a luxury brand saying yes, they wanted to work with us to promote the circular economy, it really helped elevate our company and put a couple of shockwaves through the industry.
So much more here, Stackers. Hiring, when to fire people, looking at finding investors, so much more. Julie's book is called Time to Get Real, How I Built a $1 billion Business That Rocked the Fashion Industry. And it certainly did. The fight with Chanel, just one of those stories. And it's available everywhere, Julie.
Yes, I'm excited about it. Amazon just voted it as one of the best business and leadership books of the year.
It is a roller coaster ride, Stackers. Julie, thanks so much for mentoring our Stackers today. I super appreciate you and appreciate the work that you did here.
Oh, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Hey there, Stackers. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug, and I can't stay long. It's Margot Robbie's birthday, and I've promised to pick her up and take her to dinner. Well, kinda. I called her publicist, and by that I mean the receptionist. But good news, the fourth time I called and pretended to be her brother, they put me through to her assistant. When she said Margot's booked, I totally flipped out. Booking her was that easy. So it appears Margot is coming to Texarkana to have dinner with me. Margot, of course, lit up the screen last year as the face of Barbie, a woman who's had some serious makeovers over the year and now is a hot property. Much of this is due to the man who was president and COO of Mattel, Richard Dickinson. Richard has now gone on to run another company, this time in fashion, that used to dominate mall sales in the 80s and 90s, but has faded lately. What company is Richard Dickinson CEO of now? I'll be back right after I figure out what Margot Robbie's favorite band is. I'm going to see if they'll come and play for us. Margot's going to love it.
I had a breakfast mentoring meeting yesterday with a young woman who was just amazing. She is graduating from college with a degree in wealth management, and she reached out hoping for some pointers. And listen, if somebody's in Texarkana and wants to go into this beautiful field of personal finance and helping people get their money together, that is incredible. But even more incredible is how she reached out, how she was trying to network. And I was having a discussion that finding the right person and avoiding the wrong person for a role, that's what can make or break an organization. And we just don't see that many qualified people. So how do you find them? Well, Indeed sponsored jobs is a boost whenever you need to find quality talent. If you're hiring, Indeed is all you need. You can stop struggling to get your job post even seen on other sites. You'll match with quality candidates with Indeed's sponsored jobs. Get matched with and hire quality candidates who can drive the results you need. Reach candidates who meet your specific criteria like skills, certifications, or location. It drives me crazy when I'm matched with all kinds of people who aren't a fit. I don't have that kind of time. People are finding quality hires on Indeed right now. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. Sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed are 95% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all the boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed sponsored job. And here's what's cool, Stackers. You're going to get $75 in sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support Stacking Benjamins by saying you heard about Indeed right here at Stacking Benjamins. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. In business, there is no room for guesswork. Every shipment matters. Every deadline counts. And when you're trying to keep operations running smoothly, the last thing you need is uncertainty. That's why reliability is at the core of USPS Ground Advantage. From the moment your package is first scanned in, it moves through a secure nationwide network, aiding in a timely and accurate delivery. You get near real-time tracking so you can keep up with your shipments. And with affordable upfront pricing, there are no hidden fees or surprise surcharges to throw off your cost sheets. It all adds up to predictable deliveries you can depend on, because knowing your logistics are handled lets you focus on everything else, your customers, your team, and the future you're building. Visit USPS.com/Ground Advantage to start shipping with confidence. USPS Ground Advantage. We mean business.
K-pop Demon Hunters Haja Boys breakfast meal and Huntrix meal have just dropped at McDonald's. They're calling this a battle for the fans. What do you say to that, Rumi?
It's not a battle. So glad the Saja Boys could take breakfast and give our meal the rest of the day.
It is an honor to share.
No, it's our honor.
It is our larger honor.
No, really. Stop.
You can really feel the respect in this battle. Pick a meal to pick a side.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
At participating McDonald's while supplies last.
Hey there, Stackers. I'm music lover and guy who didn't know how much bands charge, Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug. So it turns out Beyonce charges way more than mom would loan me, so I guess we're going to hit up the local dive bar Fat Jack's after dinner at the Sizzler. Margot will still love that, don't you think? In honor of Margot Robbie's birthday, here was today's Barbie-related trivia question. The president and COO of Mattel during Barbie's resurgence was Richard Dickinson, also of more cowbell fame, right? Same guy, isn't it?
The Richard Dickinson.
Yes.
I'm sure he walked into the new company and said, yes, the Richard Dickinson.
Yes. He is now at the helm of one of America's biggest fast fashion companies, a collection of brands that used to rock mall and strip mall sales. They're still around, but not nearly as hot as they used to be. What brand has Dickinson been trying to revive? If you said Gap, which includes other brands like Old Navy and Banana Republic, you'd be correct. Nice work. I'll tell Margot how smart you are when she gets here. And now back to two guys who could be models for Ken and Ken's nerdy banker friend, Joe and OG.
I think I'd be Ken.
I'll let you two sort it out. Fight.
A great piece a few months ago in Fast Company magazine, by the way, about Dickinson. The piece writes, turning around Barbie was hard, but the issue with Barbie was she was a lightning rod. People either loved her or they hated her. She's like either what women stood for or not what women stood for. I remember when Autumn was playing with Barbie, Cheryl's sister wouldn't let her daughter play with Barbie. She's like, I don't want any Barbie in my house. And now, of course, Cheryl's sister was the first one in line for the Barbie movie starring Margot Robbie and is like all about Barbie. Barbie's fantastic. Dickinson and company, there's a great piece there. And they said the problem with the Gap is different because where Barbie was still a lightning rod, people just don't give a shit about the Gap anymore. They're just like, yeah, Old Navy. It's where I go pick up school clothes for my kid. You know, the interesting thing was I went and looked this up. The last 5 quarters in a row, same store sales for locations open at least 1 year have increased 5 quarters in a row. So Dickinson now finding a way to turn that around. Although the piece that I was reading is about how tariffs for Gap, along with a lot of retailers, are problematic. But going back to this, OG, companies find a way, right? I mean, this whole piece that I'm reading about Gap and the tariffs, Richard Dickinson and everybody else going, hey, how do we make sure that we keep this?
All they're doing is trying to solve that problem.
Yeah. So owning the stock in the company, and we're not saying own stock in Gap. We're saying owning stock in the companies is the way to go. All right, let's do a headline.
Hello, darlings. And now it's time for your favorite part of the show, our Stacking Benjamin's headlines.
Our headline today comes to us from the Jason Zweig. We should keep track, OG, of which writer gets the headline spot the most. But Jason, I think, might be fighting for it. It's Jason, voice of intelligence over at the Wall Street Journal. Jason says, even sophisticated institutions sometimes fall into the trap of putting an unhealthy number of investing eggs in one basket. Jason begins this piece by saying, if you need to ask whether you have too much money in that one investment, the answer
It's probably yes.
is yes. Do I have too much? Yes, you have too much. Even after the latest bout of tariff turmoil, stocks have mostly recovered their April losses at the time that we recorded this, by the way, which is a little bit early. So things might have changed in the last few days. So readers, friends, and family are asking me questions like, is it a bad idea to have 85% of my portfolio in NVIDIA? Should I own some stocks other than Apple? If Bitcoin's 90% of my assets, should I scale back? For something like 99.95% of people, the answer is yes. This is interesting, OG, because he goes on to talk about how Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger have repeatedly said that diversification's the win. You look at Berkshire Hathaway's assets, the company that they managed for years and years and years together. It's a diversified collection of companies. Like they practice diversification as a way to make more money, or at least avoid huge losses all at one time.
Is it that diversified though? I don't know.
Insurance companies, Dairy Queen, Coca-Cola, real estate brokerage firms. Like it's kind of all over the place.
Yeah, I think his advice around diversification is a really great way not to get poor. If you look at the largest wealth creation from stock ownership, it's not from being diversified. And this is the thing that I think that's really difficult for most people to have this juxtaposed thinking. If you look at Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or Larry Ellison or any of these people, they made all of their money by being super concentrated. But those are like lightning in a bottle. Like that's the stuff that you see that is the one out of X thousand, 100,000, million that were successful, right? So you see that one success story. You don't see the other ones that weren't successful. But there's a case to be made for leaning into the thing that you're really good at. And if you're, for example, an entrepreneur, most of my net worth is in the value of the businesses that we have. It's not in, I have ETFs and I have my 401k and I have stuff like that, but the vast majority of my net worth is in the businesses. It's very concentrated, but I'm also operating those businesses, if that makes sense. So I'm not a passive investor.
Sure. Zweig actually talks about this even in a broader context, OG. He says few stocks have performed better in recent years than NVIDIA. Consider what's happening at the Jen Sung and Lori Wang Foundation, created by NVIDIA's founder and CEO, Jensen Huang, and his wife. As of December 31st, 2019, its assets consisted of $378 million in NVIDIA stock. Let me go back to that. December 31st, 2019, it was $378 million.
Pretty good foundation.
Over the 4 years after that, right? NVIDIA goes on a tear, $378 million to $3.4 billion.
Yeah.
Even after they've donated over $170 million in grants, according to their tax filings.
Yeah.
NVIDIA did 745% over that period.
So I think that if you're in a position that you're starting to accumulate wealth, so you're coming out of school, you've got your first job, you're starting your retirement plan, and you are putting money in your 401k, should you put it all in one stock or should you be putting it all into or should you be diversifying in a bunch of ETFs? I think you put in a bunch of ETFs. I think that you don't have the expertise, time, energy, any of that stuff to pick winners. And also it's impossible to do successfully long-term. If you're in a position where, and this is where I think it gets confusing, if you're in a position where you get awarded stock, or you've been in a position where your net worth has grown because of some one particular event, you own a business that's done really well, you have stock options in a company that has taken off, and now you look at your balance sheet and you go, well, I've got this great balance sheet, but it's highly concentrated in one thing. I think the hard part for an investor is to look at that and say, the right thing is to diversify it, even if it's going to cost me some pretty substantial taxes to do that, because I can't guarantee that that overperformance is going to continue in advance. You know, if you're an investor or if you're an employee of NVIDIA, and I think I read an article that they've made some 5-figure number of people millionaires in their company.
Oh my.
Tens of thousands of people have turned into millionaires because of RSUs and stock grants. So using NVIDIA as an example, or any other company for that matter, if you look at your balance sheet and you go, yeah, I've got my 401k and put my 10% in, I'm maxing it out, I got my HSA, Roth IRA, doing the thing. But my balance sheet is 90% company stock because I got lucky. I happened to join the company at the right time. I helped it be successful. You know, I did my part. My company has grown so substantially that now I've got this $5 billion net worth with $4 million of it being in company stock. Or, you know, I've got $1 million net worth, 800,000 is my company because it just went public. The hard part is, and this is the difficult thing for an investor in that, is like they see that recent bias. They see that recent history and go, why would I want to sell this? I mean, it's up tenfold in 5 years, man. Like, come on, I don't want to sell it.
Well, we see something else too that Jason points out, OG, on that same
overperformance does not continue into infinity. It just doesn't happen.
I love his.
What does Jason say?
I love his
about
other
it?
reason. I mean, the one is I don't want to sell it because it's done so good.
It's done so great.
Yes, it's the good one. And then you wait too long. He said the other problem is we all think we have superior skills when most of us don't. And when you go on a good run with a company, you don't credit enough of that to the company hit a great, phenomenal patch. You just happen to be at the same place with a company that's making money, like the fact that you stumbled into it. No, you're a freaking genius. And you know what?
Yeah.
I want to just keep patting myself on the back instead of realizing that I might not be as skilled as I think I am.
Huge market forces are in play in a lot of those things too, that go beyond, you know, if you're a tech worker, your coding capabilities. I mean, hell, even Zuckerberg would point out the fact that his fortune in Facebook, and the movie, if you watched it, would say that he kind of stole it, but his fortune happened to line up with how all of this worked. Malcolm Gladwell's book about outliers, when he talks about how the timing of all of that worked, you know, in terms of, he's talking about birthdays and, you know, that sort of interesting thing. It so happens that all of the tech founders were all kind of born around the same time. They were born at a time where when they came of age, as they were transitioning into being a young adult, supercomputers at the time, regular PCs, were more able to be, you know, they were able to be in rich people's houses. They were born at a time where 10 years earlier, they would have aged out of that. They would have been in college when that stuff happened. And think about your own life. And you guys are profoundly older than I am. So this is probably just really just kind of land a little bit more for you. I know that you guys went to school during time when there wasn't a profound amount of internet or email. Think about the transition, the difference, even just in our, and I say you're much older, but just in the little bit of age gap that you and I have, or the three of us have, in terms of what normal was. I remember Lissa telling me about Bluetooth. She's like, no, I read about this. She was in college. She goes, I read about this. She's like, you're going to have your device. And I had like a Palm Pilot, you know, because it was super cool back in the late 90s, early 2000s. She's like, no. You'll be able to take this device and like hold it next to the printer and it'll print. I go, come on. No. She goes, no. I said, yeah, like Wi-Fi. She goes, no, it's not Wi-Fi. It's a different thing. It only works like low, like really close. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Who would use that? It doesn't make any sense at all. That sounds ridiculous. And now when your AirPods don't work, you're freaking out. You're like, why is my phone not working? You're like, oh, sorry, I Bluetooth off. It's like a common thing. But move that generationally by 5 years and you don't have that experience. And I see that with my kids too. So to your point, and to Jason's point, I think you're not as good as you think you are. Some of it is, hey, you got hired in 2016 to work at this company, and didn't graduate college in 2008 when there weren't any jobs. Because the guy and gals who graduated in 2008 worked a different career path that wasn't this, not through any fault of their own. That was just what was going on.
He goes on to talk about other foundations. He talks about the Lilly Foundation. You know, once Zepbound got big, people who don't know Zepbound, it's like Ozempic. And so a Lilly Foundation, mostly Eli Lilly stock, but other charities. And these charities, by the way, are filled with really smart people running them, right? So Ford, Gates, Kresge, they all took this concentrated position and they diversified them once they got to a certain point, going, listen, we had a great run. Gates is an example with Microsoft, had a great run, but now our goal is to spread this wealth out.
I mean, the vast majority of his net worth is still in Microsoft stock,
majority of his, but the foundation, has been diversifying aggressively.
Yeah.
As he does very well, Jason juxtaposes what's going on with this Wang Foundation, which is NVIDIA, and another foundation, which is the Barbie Foundation, not the same Barbie we were talking about earlier. This is BARBEY, which is the founder of VF Corp. They make clothing and footwear. Over the 10 years ending December 31st, 2019, VF Corp generated a stellar 21.9 annualized return every year, going up to almost 22%, far outpacing the S&P 500 13.6. I mean, that's a big third more money every year. At that point, the investment portfolio of the J.E. Barbie 8 FBO 10-acre foundation was almost completely VF shares. The assets were $3.3 billion, with $3.1 billion in VF alone. So here's what we got. We got $3.3 billion, of which $3.1 billion is in one stock. And this is in December of 2019 versus that NVIDIA Foundation, which had $378 million at the same time. Subsequently, VF stocks unraveled, losing about 78% by the year end of 2023. And now the Barbie Foundation is tiny comparatively, while the NVIDIA Foundation is huge. And to your point, the big aha here is lack of diversification just creates greater standard deviation.
I mean, for me, the big aha was that's what you get for starting out making barbecues, like Australian barbecues.
Is that what they make?
I think that was their origins. Shrimp. They put shrimp on the Barbie, right?
Oh, I knew there was something going on there.
I don't know any other way to do that logic puzzle.
And then he goes back, guys, and talks about the winners always rotate too. He said it was back in March 27th of 2000. You know what company surpassed Microsoft to become the world's most valuable company back in March 27th of 2000?
Was that
Cisco
GE?
Systems.
Oh, Cisco. Yeah.
Yeah. GE, Cisco, everybody who says, no, hold it forever. That single stock, it is possible OG to be in the stock for too long. Great piece. We will link to this on our show notes. Jason Zweig with another home run. And of course, more goodness about all these financial planning topics at our newsletter, the 201, stackingbenjamins.com/201 gets you there. That is always free. And you get an email delivered hot and fresh from us to you in your inbox every week. All right, Doug, on to the back porch. What's happening on the community today, my friend?
Joe, we've got a fast. I'll do it as fast as I can, but this one actually is worth savoring a little bit. It's a great review from J. Mez Phillips.
Oh, thanks, J. Mez Phillips.
J. Mez says, enjoy the show, but disagree on one point from the 528 episode. I have been listening to your podcast for many years now and enjoy every episode. As a former CFP from a prior life, I find your advice spot on. I have recommended your show to many of my family and friends, and I am pretty sure my wife is sick and tired of hearing me start sentences with, I heard this thing on Stacking Benjamins today. James, I got to tell you, she's sick and tired of a lot of stuff you're doing. I also enjoy the comic relief. That means you, Doug. And yes, the trivia is very entertaining. However, I do take exception with your recent back porch where you said children should refer to adults as Mr. and Mrs.
Oh, that was in a different part of the show. And by the way, so many people talking about this.
Yes.
Lots of discussion. You know, it's funny. We talk about the 4% rule, decumulation, international investing, food waste, and everybody wants to talk about whether you should call adults by their first name or not.
So get this. He tells a great story about this. He says, when I met my now in-laws at 17 years of age in 1985, they demanded that I call them by their first names. No one called them Mr. or Mrs., and we were the same way with our daughter's friends when they were young, 5 years old. They all called us James and Allison unless they were uncomfortable doing so. Respect is shown by how you act, not how you address someone. Joe, you can call me James. OG, you can call me Mr. Phillips.
Did he really write that? No,
he
way.
really wrote that. He says, have fun and keep making podcasts. You're helping and entertaining people. Two great things.
That's fabulous. Thank you so much for that. And thanks for the kind words. That's a fantastic way to end our Wednesday. Thank you for referring people, because, if you got people in your life that are taking out the 4% and they could take out at $1 million, $15,000 a year more,
they can take you on vacation.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was going to say, you get a cut of that. Like, if you're the one to share with them, I heard this thing on Stacking Benjamins, I think you should get a cut of the extra 0.7.
I think there's a case to be made. There ought to be a law. There ought to be.
You know what they say.
All of them. Well, here's what they don't say. Doug says. Doug gives us our to-do list at the end of every show, and this is no exception. Doug, what's our big 3 things we need to remember and put on our to-do list?
Well, Joe, first, take some advice from Julie Wainwright. The only way is through. So get moving on your idea and turn it into reality. Second, that one stock, yeah, you do own too much of it. But the big lesson? Big thanks to OG for explaining that Margot's assistant saying she's booked that night might actually have a negative connotation. So maybe I should cancel the reservation? Or better yet, hey, Ma! Want to go listen to some tunes at Fat Jack's with me? Thanks to Julie Wainwright for joining us today. You'll find her new book, Time to Get Real, How I Built a $billion Business That Rocked the Fashion Industry, wherever books are sold. And because I like you, I'll have my people include links in our show notes at stackingbenjamins.com. This show is the property of SB Podcasts, LLC, copyright 2025. And is created by Joe Saul-Sehy. Joe gets help from a few of our neighborhood friends. You'll find out about our awesome team at stackingbenjamins.com, along with the show notes and how you can find us on YouTube and all the usual social media spots. Come say hello. Oh yeah, and before I go, not only should you not take advice from these nerds, don't take advice from people you don't know. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Before making any financial decisions, speak with a real financial advisor. I'm Joe's mom's neighbor, Doug, and we'll see you next time back here at the Stacking Benjamin Show.
We are a little ahead of recording, and so we haven't had Father's Day yet. Do you guys, when you guys think about Father's Day, do you think like, I want to spend time with all of my family and kids? Or do you think it's Father's Day, I shouldn't have to?
I feel like there's a right answer here, but are you leading us onto something?
Which one of those? Because I feel like on Mother's Day, my wife's like, look, it's Mother's Day. You spend time with the kids. And then on Father's Day, she's like, hey, it's Father's Day. You should spend time with the kids. And I'm like, wait a second.
What's the double standard here? What is going on?
Where do you guys drop in on this? I mean, it's a little bit different because your kids are older. You don't see them.
Yeah, I want to spend time with my kids.
Yeah, you want to.
I absolutely do.
I do too, actually.
You have to say that. They listen. They're in the next room.
So the boys have gotten into golf a little bit, and they're not, they're working through it. They have some really good shots. They have some magically awful ones. They need to work on pace of play. Like they just do a lot of like practice swings, and I'm like, just hit the ball.
Alex and William, it'll be like that for the next 70 years.
Well, not pace of play. If they play, I mean, I just go and hit. Like there's There's no warm up. But anyway, so this past week we played 9 holes. About halfway through, they're getting frustrated with the fact that, some shots are good, some shots are bad. And, I'm just kind of drumming my fingers like, what are we doing, guys? Let's go. Come on. Quit arguing, hit the ball. And so I decided that they should play me for dish duty as a scramble.
That's a good idea.
This was just reinvigorated their golf game because they were working together on a scramble against Dad.
I like it.
So they scrambled and got a stroke. So there are 4 holes to play. They won the first one. We tied the second, and then they won the third hole. There was no way for me to win. And I said, well, would you like to play double or nothing?
Oh, no, don't. You completely just gut punched him, didn't you?
Well, they were like, wait, what does that mean? And so I explained, I said, well, it means that either I do twice as many dishes, or if I win, we're even Steven. There's nobody wins or loses. That's the bet. I said, you guys talk about it. I'm going to the next tee box. So they were driving together in their cart. And so we get up there and I said, what do you guys want to do? They said, yeah, let's do it. So we get both, you'll do dishes for us both twice. I go, yeah, if you win. And you get a stroke. So you just have to beat me. You have to tie my score. First one tees off, he just shanks it right. Like, okay, no problem. I got you, brother. Next one tees off, it's a little right. Then it's my turn. And the clouds parted. The wind started gusting from behind me. And for the first time all day, I hit a golf ball dead straight on the screws with a 500 mile an hour wind off 2 sprinkler heads. A bird picked it up and carried it further.
It rolled down the cart path
It didn't hit the cart path. It was dead straight. It took one big hop onto the green, and I watched my kids melt as they're like, no. I did 3 putt, though, sadly, for a par, and they made a 6. So that was a valuable lesson that they learned, which was take your money and run. When you're up at the casino,
take the win.
You have to leave.
If you got the NVIDIA and it's way up,
sell your stock. So I'm going to do that again this Father's Day, I think, and see if I can con them out of some more money.
It reminds me of a time I was golfing. I was solo, and I got paired up with 3 other people. They all knew each other. It was Jesus, Moses, and this other guy.
Oh, no.
They all knew each other. Moses gets up, and he crushed the drive, but it went, of course, we were on a really tall grass, like heather, super tall, and he hits it into the tall grass, but he just raises his arms, and the grass just parts, and the ball just rolled forever. And he gets up pretty close to the green, and Jesus is like, great shot, Moses. I see what you did there. And then Jesus gets up, and he crushes one at the water. But what's the ball do when it gets to the water? It just like bounces right across, like it was solid surface, just walked on water. And Moses is like, oh, okay, all right. Yep, that's pretty good. And then the third guy gets up, and he really, he shanks one super high into the right, into the trees that were right next to the tee box, but a bird picks it up, carries it all the way over, drops it pretty close, but it didn't roll to the cup. But then a squirrel comes along and just like nudges it in with his nose, and it goes in the cup for a hole in one. And Jesus goes, nice shot, Dad.